Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 3 of the VROOM podcast. I'm your host, Wills Jones, along with my co-host and friend, Simon Martel.
Hello, everybody.
So Portugal, it was a little bit boring.
Yeah. You know what I find the most surprising part was that there was a little bit of maybe like some teasing after quali. I thought that we saw some kind of mix up. Both of us was able to take pole, and then it looked like it did look like the Mercedes had a bit too much pace for the other teams to compete. But at least having put us on pole, you know that there's going to be Hamilton's going to have to pass at least one car, which is better than most races.
Very true, very true.
And it's kind of what we got. We got him to pass more than one car during the race, so at least there's that. But no, definitely kind of a vanilla race. It's a bad race when they focus a lot on the battle for the between 17th and 18th place.
Yeah. Well,
So,
like there is something special about like back in the history of F1, like Schumacher and Villeneuve had some great fights at the Portuguese Grand Prix. So there was just a little nostalgia. Here's a Schumacher fighting a Canadian and a Williams.
Yeah.
We'll tease you
that's a different Williams team at that time, eh?
Very true.
Man. All right, so I think we can kind of start chronologically. So just to talk a bit about Portugal, we didn't really touch upon it last time, but Portugal is a race that hasn't been run in Formula One at all recently. And it's kind of a surprise venue because of COVID. So it was the first time in a long time that Portugal was part of the calendar last year with COVID.
Yeah, and if you look back to Portuguese Grand Prix, like Ayrton Senna, his first ever Grand Prix win was a Portuguese Grand Prix. Obviously, some great Villeneuve Schumacher championship fights going down at the Portuguese Grand Prix. I think personally, I would love to see brought back the European Grand Prix, where it's just they travel around to the best track in Europe every year, pick and choose which tracks you want to go to which year, and that's your European Grand Prix. I think that'd be awesome because there are so many amazing racetracks on that continent.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just pulling up kind of the info to give an idea. The last time there was a Grand Prix in Portugal was in 1996. So pretty crazy that it's been so long since it happened, and they kind of died off because the track was in too bad of a conditions for F1. And so since it's returned because of COVID in Portugal, it's at a new place in Portimao, and it's a nice track that I think they've been enjoying a lot. I remember last year they had just resurfaced it, and they were having a lot of problem having traction. It didn't seem like that was the case this year, which is good. I guess they got a year of usage and of rubber to kind of give a bit more adherence, but they had a big problem with wind this year. I don't know if you noticed, eh?
Yeah, the wind. You heard George Russell mention, man, when there was no wind on the track, we were 7/10 faster. That's a lot. That's almost a second faster a lap, without any wind. It speaks to how much those cars are affected by the air around them. I think with the new regulations coming and the less downforce needed and more ground effect affecting less of the outside air, I think you'll see wind play far less of a factor in Grand Prix racing in the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that I'm kind of hopeful that can help, kind of reduce the advantage that first runner-up has, and that we've been seeing for the last couple of years, where as soon as that first runner-up can kind of get the clean air in front and just get a couple of clean laps, well, he's gone for the rest of the race, unless somebody fucks up in the pits, which is kind of a boring way for the race to go. But yeah, definitely something interesting. So in that first practice in Portugal, Portimao, well, like we kind of seen in the last couple of races, free practice isn't really very reliable to see pace. Do you agree with me?
No, I agree 100%.
I don't know what it is. I imagine they really try to figure out how the machine works, but every time through practice one, Russell's going to be the fastest runner, and you're like, oh, okay, this is out of nowhere. But I guess they're the only one who tried, and then in free practice two, then someone else is going to be, and they're going to say like, oh, Red Bull has tons of pace, and all of a sudden, free practice three, oh, Hamilton, Bottas, oh, what a surprise!
Yeah, it is like you can sort of tell, and I think the progression of that Mercedes throughout the weekend is like very steep. Like it seems to start off as like just the worst car on the grid, and then the engineers start tweaking stuff and making some workarounds, and then it gets fast. Like it every time you hear Lewis, he's like, "This car is undrivable, man. You know, we're unboxing right away, blah blah blah." And then he comes out in the race, and it's obviously not an undrivable car.
I think that kind of speaks maybe to how much he knows what it's capable of, right? So he knows that there's some tunings that can be adjusted that makes it better, and I'm sure he gives some very useful input as a 7-time world champion. But yeah, I agree with the point where it's like it just seems like they always come out slow, and then all of a sudden it's qualifying and they're top of the grid, and there's not really anything to be expected from that. Yeah, apart from that, I agree. Free practice was kind of the average practice. Everybody was just on track, kind of trying to get some rubber down. A lot of teams are saying they didn't have any pace today at well, like this weekend, which was I found quite kind of surprising. A lot of people
Austin Martin
feedback.
highlighted that like they didn't have, you know, the pace that they thought they should this weekend. And I think looking back, like the Force Indias last year did, or the Racing Points last year, sorry, did pretty well there. And I think they're, you know, from looking at these cars very much are a progression of last year's car. I think they left a lot on the table. I feel as though, you know, they feel the same way. I also think, who was it last year? Somebody else came higher and left a lot on the table. Ferrari left a lot of points on the table today, I think.
Yeah,
they really could have done better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm still very undecided on Ferrari as a team this year. I guess we'll really have to see how it plans out, but they're not qualifying very well. They're not. I don't feel like they're fighting much on track, but they've been able to consistently be 6th, 7th, which is better performance than last year. So there's an improvement for them, but I don't feel like they're even challenging McLaren.
I think we're still gonna have to wait like 3 or 4 more races, I think, for Carlos to really get used to that car, and then, you know, I think then we'll really get a fight. And the same with Daniel Ricciardo. I think
exactly what I think.
His race on Sunday was really, really impressive, but his qualifying along with Stroll's was just abysmal.
Yeah, let's talk about Stroll. What a reversal! What a reversal of the roles. Stroll seemed completely outclassed by Vettel this weekend.
I know. Even
especially for
let me check. What
especially for a car where he's been a lot more comfortable, been using it for a lot longer. Yeah, Stroll definitely had a bad weekend. It seemed like that car just never had the guts to do anything.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with Stroll to not qualify. Like he's been very consistent in qualifying this season. I think not both him and Seb. Seb has definitely had some iffy qualifying this season. It was good to see him sort of get back on some type of form, qualifying just outside the top 10 it was.
He was top 10. He made Q3.
He did make Q3, yeah. So that was good to see. But then if you
people
look at
got
the race,
excited.
I got excited.
Yeah.
And if you look at the race, like he, you know, started 10th, finished 13th, right ahead of his teammate who started way down the grid. So
yeah,
there's definitely, like, I think out of anyone on that team, I think Seb left more out on the table. Stroll put in a great race to finish where he finished, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And another thing as well is like talk about qualification. Ricardo, both Stroll, definitely didn't show their pace, and while their teammates did, which is surprising because if you think about it, they had the same car. How much different can it be, especially for somebody like Ricardo, who is one of the most experienced runners on the grid at this point. I'm very excited to see if he's able to figure out the car and kind of get into the pace, because we got to remember he was fighting for titles with Max at Red Bull for a while until he decided to leave because he wanted to be #1 driver.
And I honestly think his qualifyings have been like a little, I'm not going to say iffy because he's put in good qualifyings, but I think his qualifying strategy has been kind of sketchy of like when he actually goes out to do his laps and trying to manage traffic, which I kind of think that's what this came down to, is like he just ran out of time in Q1 to put the good lap in, and like it, that's just something like you got to get better at him doing. One of those figuring out the teams, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about teams, right? If we think about it, Ricardo was with Renault last year, and now this year, Renault got rebranded to Alpine, and Alpine just had a very strong race. What do you think maybe is going through Ricardo's mind right now?
Man, I don't know, because if I'm sitting in Danny Rick's shoes, like I'm kind of looking at Lando's performances and being like, I know that's what the car can do, obviously. So I think there's more pace in that McLaren than there is in the Renault, but potentially is the Renault easier to drive? I don't know. There's something I don't think Daniel is really figuring out with this car. It's still very much a handful for him.
Yeah, man, I was looking at that Alpine car like a lot more close to this weekend, and it's a good looking car. I don't know how you evaluate the looks of your car, but I mean the main difference usually is their nose, and that's about it. So from nose wise, I like the Alpine car. It's a nice pointy nose, just like the dictator would say, it has to be pointy. So there you go.
I think my favorite part about the Alpine livery is that the livery they have on their F1 car is what is across all of their like race cars. So like they all look the same. I think that looks so cool. You're never confused like looking for the Alpine out on track, no matter what motorsport you're watching.
Yeah, that's true. I mean that's very relevant to a lot of other teams though. Ferrari with their Ferrari red.
Yeah,
McLaren's
like
been
the
going
Ferrari
hard
factory
with their
team's always red.
Yeah,
But
McLaren's been going hard with their orange now.
Not in the other motorsport categories.
Really? I would have thought, don't they like their F2 is orange, and
yeah, but in like their like GT racing and stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, no, but
I
like
mean, they're
Alpine,
just recognizable by their car.
yeah, but the Alpine like prototype teams keep the same livery, which I think
Okay,
is cool.
that's cool. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Huh.
Let's talk about Kimi's crash.
Oh, what a weird event. Yeah.
I think he was just getting sucked into Giovinazzi's slipstream a little too hard.
Which is surprising. Somebody with his experience, it seemed like he was placed exactly at the right time to slingshot, and he kind of just completely miscalculated it.
It was such a rookie mistake.
Yeah, exactly the word. And it kind of like lucky ending. The way his wing was right next to the wheel, he could have definitely like gave a puncture to Giovinazzi. The whole team would have been out for the weekend.
Yeah,
and all that on Kimi would have been a bad look.
Well, I don't know if you've listened to the race radio, but he like immediately hits him and is sliding off, and he's like, "Did I pop his tire? Did I pop his tire?" Which I mean, is the experienced driver knowing like, okay, I'm out of the race, but please tell me the teammate's okay.
Well, Kimi now too is like a part owner of the team, so he has an interest of everybody finishing well.
Fair enough, that's his team too.
Yeah, man, his pastime. His
Formula One's a hobby.
Yeah, so something interesting that you predicted last week, right? Carlos Sainz started fifth, so well done on that pick.
Yeah, it didn't turn out for the race though.
No, but at least for the qualifying.
Yes,
And
I got qualifying right.
I'm trying to remember, didn't I put Norris third? Or well,
Oh,
Norris
you
ended up
said you
what
said
position?
Gasly top five.
Yeah, that didn't work at all, man. Gasly, like the AlphaTauris looked horrible this year, like this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and like I don't think like they progressed through the race very well. I feel like at the start, I feel like they did all right and they were looking pretty good, and then they just kind of started to slip further and further back.
Yeah. No,
I
I
mean,
agree.
Gasly did
Especially,
finish in the points, so it's a good race.
man, good on Pierre Gasly, eh? Just from what, yeah. So sorry, I'm just reading this. So yeah, he qualified ninth and then finished 10th. So he just lost a position. Didn't really do much. Yeah, it's disappointing. I don't know. I feel like maybe we're also like we definitely have some higher expectation of AlphaTauri. At least I do personally, just from the like surprise performance they've been able to achieve. And we got to remember they're kind of a back burner team. So
There's
yeah,
definitely there are some impressive results that I think can be squeezed out of that car for sure.
yeah, and
It
I think they're definitely have a great lineup as well.
Oh, it's a very strong
Gasly
driver
just
lineup.
keeps Gasly just keeps showing again and again how he deserves a seat. And I don't know if there's gonna be if he's gonna move up to Red Bull again. Like he seems like he's performing at AlphaTauri. Uh, I think he's happy being driver one. He has the support he needs. He definitely wants to go to Red Bull, but I don't see him replace Checo anytime soon. Perez has the experience and is doing the job that they want, where he's just he slots in that top four and
And man, I kind of think the Red Bull door is like long closed for Pierre. I think he's either gonna stay at AlphaTauri for the rest of his career or he's moving to another team on the grid. I don't think he's ever
Ooh,
getting brought
really,
fully back into the Red Bull family.
because
Yeah.
no, I see it as them, but like maybe they pulled the trigger too fast. He wasn't ready for the Red Bull like seat. And now he's gonna show them like they're letting him mature. They kept him on AlphaTauri. That's already like a good sign. Definitely, I think the thing right now is that there's no position. So I think talking of him moving up is maybe a bit early, but he's definitely. I think he's gonna stay in the Red Bull family. You're right though to say that maybe he's gonna take a seat at another team where he thinks he can go a bit higher up in the backbenchers, but I don't know. He's looking good where he is right now. Hopefully he's happy because it's always exciting to see where he can end up with that car.
I mean, let that Alpine get a little bit quicker. French driver, French team, French engine,
Oh yeah, and they put
French
him with
world
Ocon
champion.
as well. Put a
Yeah, like they
double French lineup. That would be very French of them to do.
it,
um,
I that's kind of how I see his career going. I think he's gonna leave the Red Bull family and go back to his country.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, that's a great point. Frenchmen going and signing up with
And I think there'd be
Alpine.
like somewhat like pride with that too. Like he's definitely like as a French driver, I would assume you get into Formula One and you're like, yeah, I want to drive for Renault, which
Yeah,
Alpine has become Renault. So
yeah. Um, and then I guess the last thing we can talk about qualifying before we go to the race. We kind of said it before, but Seb made it to Q3. That was very exciting. A lot of memes, a lot of news about that. People were finally excited to see him back. What a surprising showing for him to make it to Q3, have the pace he had while Stroll didn't even make it past Q1.
mm-hmm. I definitely it kind of seemed from watching qualifying, it felt like to me he kind of got to Q3 and was like, cool, I'm
Yeah,
in Q3.
yeah.
He was just
Didn't
happy to
really
start 10th, I
didn't
think.
really think he was going to do anything else from there.
Yeah.
And then I guess since we're on the topic of Seb, when we go to the race, Seb starts 10th and then just doesn't do anything all race. Just seems like he got past and finished like 13th, I think, or
Mm-hmm.
14th. So it's kind of disappointing. Yeah, 13th. So he kind of just he qualified, but he doesn't seem to be able to do anything with that car so far.
Yeah, and like it baffles my mind because it seems like he could still do, like, he did pretty well in the Ferrari. Like, he was challenging for championships in that Ferrari, like it was close in the first halves of what, 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
2018 is when they really started to fall off. And I don't know, it's like from Germany 2017, he hasn't been able to drive a car during the race. So I think it's something mental for him, I think, for being on track with other cars around him.
Really? Oh, I don't see it like that. He definitely hasn't had
Which
the
there's no
machine.
crash to say that, though.
Yeah. He hasn't had the machine either where it's like clearly his fault. He's been having the jobs, right? He's still on the grid. Um, yeah, I'm not ready to call him washed up. I think it's exciting to finally see him get some results, right? This weekend. Hopefully we can look forward to him repeating defeat next weekend. But interesting fact. I was kind of sad for Stroll. He's been out qualifying his teammate for a little bit now. He's definitely been performing. So hopefully just a bad weekend and he moves on from that.
Yeah, I think if you look to what happened in Spain last year, those Aston Martins should be right quick.
All right. I agree that'd be exciting, but they definitely lost a lot of pace throughout the winter compared to the other teams, which it was pretty funny. We talked about Drive to Survive a lot, but it's interesting because they definitely ramp up the theatrical a lot, but a lot of trash talking from the Racing Point last year about their competitors just being jealous of having not performed during the winter to make a car as competitive as Racing Point. And now the tables are definitely turned on them. So hopefully they get a little bit of a humble pie or something. But yeah, they messed up during the winter training and building.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at why their car was fast last year, it's because they took pictures of the Mercedes. So obviously, like, without being able to use that copycat sort of design scheme, but they're still a Mercedes customer team. They still could have taken 2020 spec Mercedes parts if they wanted to and opted not to. So I think they can do as much finger pointing as they want at the FIA and changing rules unfairly to make some teams weaker and some teams stronger. But at the end of the day, like, they had the opportunity to take the upgrade parts that realistically they needed coming into this year. I think now, like, looking back at how they've done and how I feel like every race there's been cards left on the table for that team. I think it goes down to, like what you said, the work they put in over the winter just wasn't good enough work.
I think there's definitely an element of the designers or engineers. They're probably just not the same level as the winniest team of all time, like VROOM and like Mercedes. And they've definitely been able to adapt. Like just the difference between the first race of the season and this weekend's race, the Mercedes have had the upgrades and they have already a clear difference in their performance, which is really impressive.
Mm-hmm. And actually, at this race, it was Red Bull that brought upgrade packages to this last race in Portugal. So the Red Bull we were seeing was faster than the Red Bull that raced at Imola. And then next week for Spain, Mercedes is set to bring their upgrade packages.
That's worrying.
So I think, for as close as maybe the Red Bull looked this weekend, that gap could be made wider once again next weekend.
Yeah. Talking about the race, kind of what happened. So they started off. What did they do? Not even like a lap and a half before the safety car.
Yeah, I think it was a lap and a half before. Like,
so
Kimi smashed into the back of
Yeah.
Geo right on the front straight. So yeah, they pretty much
Yeah.
did a lap.
So that safety car didn't really impact much on just like pit wall strategy or tire change. Did impact the fight for the position, first place. So what we saw initially was Bottas got cleanly away at the start. Then at the restart, he did as well. But then we saw Verstappen was able to take that second place and start chasing against Bottas. And then Hamilton was behind Verstappen and was able to pass him because of one mistake, huh? What such a quick sport, but Verstappen locked up around one corner, kind of went wide. That was just enough of a mistake for Hamilton to get in close and get into a DRS zone. And from there, it was easy for him to pass Verstappen and then just move on to his teammate, which is always something that surprises me how well Hamilton can do that. Because considering they have the same car, it seems like Bottas is never able to keep Hamilton away.
I know Lewis always seems so much faster than Valtteri, like an obscene amount faster. The one thing like really stands out to me for this race, at least at the start, is I love when Valtteri Bottas restarts a Formula One race. Oh, it is so much fun because he's pretty much like weaving right until he gets to the line and then bolts off, which forces every other driver to just stare in their mirrors and make sure they don't get passed.
Yeah,
That's exactly why Lewis got passed. He spent the whole restart just looking in his mirrors, scared for Max to come flying past him, which he did.
He did. Yeah, because so the rule is that you're not allowed to pass anybody on a safety car until the line, the start line, right? And so as soon as the safety car gets into the pits, then the pole leader weaves, and once he crosses the line, that's when the race starts. And it's very interesting because Verstappen was behind Lewis. It was going very quickly, almost passed him. I kind of to brake, and then all of that because they hadn't crossed the line first. So I agree with you. That's definitely there's definitely a time where I'm sure they're all listening to their engineer and just trying to figure out how close they are from the person behind them.
Well, what the last big crash off a restart was a Valtteri restart, and it's because he was doing the swerve and keep it really slow, and everybody got jumpy behind him. Man, I think if you're gonna restart a race, just be like, okay, put Valtteri out in front. He'll give back whatever positions he gained, but he's gonna restart us. That's my ideal.
Yeah, I agree. And then what else can we say? So once Hamilton got in front, that was kind of when the train started. You kind of already knew the result was going to be a Hamburg bot, a classic podium.
Hamburg bot.
But crazy the time differences. I don't know if you noticed at the end of the race, but Hamilton was maybe like 30 seconds, it was like 15 seconds ahead. Then you had Verstappen, then you had Bottas, then you had Perez, and then behind that you had Norris that was leading the whole midfield, but like a while back. And so I thought that was like one of the most interesting thing from this race. That's kind of a new thing now with the rules where fastest lap at the end of the race gets a point into the championship. And so that was something very interesting during the race that we saw, was that they those top four all got a chance to go into the pits and try to get that fastest lap. So Perez stayed in front for a while, right, on his tires. He definitely like outlived those tires way longer than he should have. And finally got passed by Hamilton, went into the pits, and he had like the whole pits plus a couple seconds to go get switched and everything before even Norris was close to catching up to him, which is pretty crazy in the middle of a race.
Yeah, I think the adding a point for fastest lap makes a race really like fun to watch when you have a free pit stop. Like when you have a window where you can pit and not get passed and then try and go for the fastest lap. That's just fun racing right there, man. Like that to me. And it's
agree.
like it's fun to watch too. Like when you see like, okay, like Valtteri's coming into pit so that he can put on soft tires to go for a fastest lap. And then as he's on that fastest lap, Max comes in for tires to go for a fastest lap. We're watching them go around, and I say to my dad, like, I want like when they have in qualifying, they put the little time boards underneath, man.
Yeah.
I want that right now. I want to know who's closest for fastest lap.
Yeah, and I love the aspect of, just the suspense of, oh, maybe someone's gonna fuck up, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're not gonna be able to take the tire out, or something's gonna have a problem, and then imagine that mistake and the switch up that would create. I agree. I think it definitely makes for a better spectacle.
Mm-hmm. Man, Valtteri. Speaking of pit stops, Valtteri Bottas cannot just have one simple pit stop, can he?
He's cursed.
Every race, his pit stop, his first stop is always a second slower than Lewis's. It's like for what reason?
Yeah, and
Why?
the craziest part too is how consistently Red Bull always has a better pit stops than Mercedes.
Always.
Um, they
Red Bull
they were
is like the
comparing,
pit
like,
stop team.
yeah, but like you were saying, like, Bottas came in for tires to do the fastest lap, came out maybe like 2.5 seconds his pit, and then Verstappen came in 1.9. I was just like, man, like, what a difference. Those guys at Red Bull have been training. It's crazy. Like, they're definitely doing all the right things to contest, to challenge that championship.
Man, back in the sub days, they broke the world record for fastest changing of 4 tires at like it was something ridiculous. I can't remember if it was under 1 second or if it was like just over 1 second, but it was something just stupid. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you're not at that point, you've barely even stopped and you have new tires on. Like
Yeah, it's absurd, but I love the show. I think that's really interesting, and a really funny part of that is that they've been kind of doing rules change. They always try out some new stuff. I was reading about it, and in 2005, I think 2006, there was this rule where they tried not changing tires at all through a whole set of qualifying and the race. You weren't allowed to change your set of tire at all. So they made very long-lasting tires, but it was the weirdest thing because cars would come into pit, and there was the whole pit crew, but they weren't changing tires, so they were all there, kind of just looking, just like chilling, just the whole gang, just
checking it out.
looking.
How you doing?
And then, but they would have refuel, so there'd be like there'd still be like a one guy doing the stop and wait. There'd be one guy like refueling, and then just 6 other guys
12
on the
dudes
car,
just standing around.
just looking at the car, just being there, and then the car would go again.
I
Way
mean, it's
more.
just like pulling a Ferrari into a gas station, right? It's just 12 dudes just stare at the car while you refuel.
Yeah, just part of the exercise. But I mean, at this point, I'd never thought about it that much, but it's definitely part of the spectacle. I think the tire changing and all of that definitely makes it fun to watch and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the the part that I always found most fun about like the not actually racing part of car racing when I was a little kid was in NASCAR when they say drivers start your engines, and in F1 when you get the and gone.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think we're kind of what else can we say? Oh yeah, so Norris, another top five, which is, man, he's really impressive. I think right now he's top third of the rankings.
Yeah,
Um,
he's like solidly third place too. Like there's a it's close, but it like he is confidently in third place in the championship right now.
well, you have to think that's because Bottas just didn't score any points last week, but still,
This is true.
um, still definitely like really happy for Norris, happy for McLaren. I think they're kind of the good guy underdog so far, but
They
yeah,
are kind of the lovable puppy of F1.
top five was interesting. If we look at the results, Hamilton finished first, Verstappen second, Bottas, Perez. So I think right there, Red Bull can definitely be happy, content with Paris' performance. That's kind of what they want, at least, is for him to get those points, fight for third or fourth the whole time. So very happy with what he did. His race this weekend, what could have been interesting, right? He stayed on his tires for way longer than everybody else. He kind of all of a sudden had like a free position where he was first for a couple of laps. What do you think about the idea of that maybe he could have slowed down Lewis enough for Verstappen to catch up?
Um, I like to think that it was a solid possibility. Um, I think that Mercedes is super fast, and Lewis Hamilton is a insanely talented driver. Um, I think Sergio would have had to put in like one of the drives of his life to really significantly slow Hamilton down to like potentially have a, help Max get to first place. I think something amazing would have had to happen there. I definitely feel like Checo could be getting more out of the car than he currently is. I think it was really good to finally see him close off the top four and like be like what you said with the how far ahead the top four was. Like it, these cars are an evolution of last year's, like I've said. Albon was so slow. Like
Yeah.
you never had, the top four was never two teams last year, and it's because Alex Albon just cannot drive a Formula One car. I think it's amazing for Red Bull that they finally have two cars inside the top four again. Both drivers consistently fighting for pole positions, being able to fight for podiums as well. I think this is the best Red Bull pairing since Max and Ricardo.
Yeah. Yeah, so all of that to say, I think Perez could have had like a 2-3 laps with trying to stay in front of Lewis, slowing down, because at that point Verstappen was like 4 seconds behind, right? So just enough to kind of let Verstappen get into that 1 second range, then it's really battle. But I agree, as soon as you got onto straights, Perez couldn't really like fight. His tires were shot.
There's also got to be some like mental stress of it's a 7-time world champion. That's the best driver in the world pulling up behind me.
I don't think they can't think that way. They're race car drivers. There's no way.
This is true. They're all the best driver in the world, yeah, according to themselves.
They have to believe I like that. So that was our top four was a 1-3 Mercedes, 2-4 Red Bull, which is a classic. But then we kind of had a sandwich, which was really funny. So Norris in 5th position with McLaren. Then you had a Ferrari, Alpine, McLaren. Oh, okay. Well, I guess not that much of a sandwich because we were missing another Ferrari, but still pretty similar. So Norris, Leclerc, and then Ocon, Alonso, Ricardo, and Gasly finishing up that top 10. What do you think about Alpine's performance today, and maybe the drive of Alonso? We haven't heard his name since the start of the season.
Those boys are getting to grips with that car. It's looking good. I think they're a solid shout for 5th in the championship.
Okay.
I still think at the end of the day, I think Ferrari will do better than Alpine.
Okay, I like that. You know what? I almost want to take you up on it. I really was impressed with Alpine. Maybe I'm just looking too short-sighted, but their performance was like they looked dominant. They had some great pass. Especially if Alonso can get to turn, because Ocon has been performing all season so far. Alonso was kind of the one dragging behind. I think McLaren's going to take third. I think they're going to be a bit ahead for third, but that position for 5th is going to be fought between Ferrari and Alpine for sure.
Mm-hmm. That 5th place fight is going to be close.
Yeah. And then Yeah, Carlos Sainz out of the points, which is I'm sure very disappointing for him. He didn't have an accident or anything, right?
No, he came in like over the finish line 3 seconds behind Gasly. Like I don't know what happened to him this race. It just didn't come together for him.
Yeah, and then Giovinazzi finished 12th, which is a pretty good result for the Alphas. So good on Giovinazzi. Then our boys, the Aston Martins, Vettel and Stroll, 13 and 14th. I'm happy for Stroll. You know, he started like 17th on the grid or 16th, made up a couple of positions. Vettel just dropped down, but at the end of the day, he ended up before Stroll. Then Tsunoda 15th, Russell at 16th, Schumacher, Latifi, and Mazepin. Um, I think, yeah, we kind of said a bit beforehand, but what a funny ways that I find the TV crew sometimes decide to broadcast their shows because we had a battle around 10th, like Science, Gasly, they're all fighting for it. But then they really decided to focus on the battle between 16th, 17th, and 18th. So the Latifi and Schumacher, and I was like, it was a pretty boring race. I don't know, like those cars look like F2 cars. It's crazy.
Yeah, GP2 engine.
Yeah. But yeah, so sorry, Latifi finally found somebody that's worse than him, so he doesn't finish his and at each podium, which is good. It's his first time finishing a race this season for Latifi.
Latifi?
So yeah,
Really?
the last two races he had some unlucky things happen. So first time for him to actually finish the race. So happy for him. Let's go. Um, apart from that, oh, Mazepin. You saw the incident? The blue flag?
Oh yes. Yes, yes, yes. Eh, people in Assetto Corsa respect blue flags better than Nikita Mazepin does. That's all I'm gonna say. We can just leave it there, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad. I feel like there have been like times before where it's just like Mazepin's been holding people up for no reason. Like even in practice, I feel like things like this have happened, and it's like it. I think he's just kind of too full of himself in the fact that he's in Formula One.
He's also just a rookie. Like it's nice to hate on him, but I'm just saying like I was just kind of bringing it up to more talk about. Imagine the possibility of his action slowing down somebody in the lead enough for him to be like caught up by someone else. Like that's bad.
And this is true, yeah.
Because I'm trying to remember who was it that it was Perez. So Perez was trying to pass him, and he had to brake because he got slowed down, and that Hamilton caught up to him like a couple laps before, like earlier than he would have otherwise. So I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't that big of a deal, but still kind of affected the race, which was pretty crazy. And then cherry on top, he got a penalty. Guess how much time?
It was. Oh, I don't remember this. I feel like it was 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was a 5 second penalty when he's already a minute behind the leader. Yeah, yeah. So that was Nikita Mazepin.
And that like could
much.
too just be a like not respecting the blue flags. Like could also just be a rookie mistake of like he didn't realize how close behind Perez was.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I will give him the benefit of the doubt of like I'm sure it is not easy to let somebody through on a racetrack driving in a car that fast.
Yeah. I'm looking at the notes. You wanted to talk about TSN? What did they do?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna rant about TSN for a little bit. So I'm watching the race on the sports network in Canada as one does. And you know, they do the cutaway ad. So they leave it the race playing up in the corner and then your ad plays over here. So, you know, I have no problem with that. I can still see the racing going on. it just really sucks when they do that and there's a pass for the lead. Like every time they break away into the top little corner, something happens.
Yeah.
When like they could easily just break away during like a yellow flag. Like we watched the entire yellow flag process. Pop that up in the corner, put ads on. Like I just think they do the scheduled ads that, you know, go in where ads should go in. I think they need a guy sitting there to at least like understand the flow of the race so that they're not showing ads when there's, you know, passes for first, second, and third going on. Is
Yeah.
like my biggest pet peeve as like a race fan. I'm getting close to like buying F1 TV just because I want to see the whole race. And then you also, when they go to those cutaway ads, like you miss on actual interesting commentary. Like I found out through watching YouTube videos afterwards that Max Verstappen couldn't access or was slipping out of third gear all race.
Yeah.
So like that's one of those things where like it is just really frustrating as a race fan trying to watch a race on TV when you get 2/3, 3/4 of the actual action that's going on. So that's my
Yeah.
little rant over.
No, I agree. And like I think it kind of it kind of plays on how just the whole F1 like broadcasting rights work so far. I was I was reading up on it, like the complexity of kind of sending a broadcast to all the countries that are interested in having one. And I think the way it works is like pretty impressive technologically, but man, is it frustrating when you have the commentators talking about something and they're like, oh, something just happened on track. And then it cuts to the wrong car, or it cuts to Nikita Mazepin fucking like doing some boring ass laps, and you're like, no, just go to who you're talking about. Like, I want to see what you just said. Like, so annoying.
Yeah, it definitely like there's I think broadcasting any sport is never done perfectly. Like I'm going to say that there's no way to perfectly broadcast a sporting event. If you want to see a sporting event the way it was meant to be viewed, you go watch it in person, and I'll stand by that. But it's just tough when, you know, like the crew working on the game or like sport you're watching just feels like they don't fully understand it. Or, you
Yeah.
know, like they get like obviously the people filming at the tracks and that stuff, they understand what they're doing. And like when you cut to the wrong car, it could have been because, you know, well, like Lewis was at turn 5 2 seconds ago and now it's Mazepin.
Yeah.
Like that's obviously just the speed of the sport playing in. But the actual like the broadcast in Canada, I feel like could be dramatically improved.
Yeah, I agree. No, I've been I haven't been listening. I was listening to like the French broadcast for a while, and like another thing that's kind of annoying is that they're they're broadcasting on like footage. It seems like, well, they don't control. So most of the time they're kind of just reacting to what they see, which makes sense. That's kind of what commentators do. But it's definitely frustrating when they're not. Yeah, they're kind of just flowing, and it doesn't seem like they're directing kind of what they're trying to say, which kind of cuts off the flow a little bit. I find out on most of the commentary.
And definitely like that's where I would say the one saving grace of the TSN broadcast is that it's the Sky Sports broadcast. So Sky Sports, they control all of the cameras at the F1 track. So you're always watching what Martin Brundle and Crofty are talking about.
Yeah.
Which I think like that's like the one saving grace I said. Like it
Yeah.
other than that, the TSN part butchers the broadcast. Once it gets across the pond and into North America, it gets ruined with ads.
I guess finally, we can talk maybe about the new Red Bull facility that's being built. Kind of a good sign. Red Bull wants to stay in the sport.
Yeah, so it's like a great, you know, future building investment in Formula One. Red Bull is going to become the second team in Formula One to produce their own chassis and engine in the same place. So Ferrari do it, Red Bull are going to do it now. I think it's just exciting for F1, especially that, like, you know, you look and you see, okay, well, I feel like Aston Martin could probably one day produce their own engine if they wanted to and if they progress far enough in the sport. And I think if Red Bull can show that they can build their own engine and they are in no way an automotive brand, then I see no reason why other legitimate automotive companies can't come in and start building their own F1 cars and F1 engines.
Yeah, just you wait
If an
until
energy drink
just
company
you wait
can do it.
until Red Bull Racing just starts producing those Red Bull minis with the cans, but with their own engine. And they're just gonna start pushing them out of the production line. Everyone's gonna be driving one.
The can is the gas tank. Full nitros bottle.
It's gonna be a spec so that you can put 3 golf bags in it.
Yes.
Or your skis.
Your skis, anything you could need.
Yeah, they're ready to destroy the market.
So do we want to talk about Spain next weekend?
Yeah, so next race coming up. It's a race they're really used to. It's a circuit they always go to.
And it used to be the testing track, was not used for testing this year, thank God.
Yeah, it's usually the like pre-season testing track. Where did they train this year? In Bahrain, right?
They did the preseason test at Bahrain and then had the first race there.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
If you look at the standings from last year, it was our usual top 3, but then the 4th and 5th position was Stroll and Perez.
Oh, that's exciting.
So should we be looking for Aston Martin to pull one out of the bag this race?
I mean, I don't think they have the pace this year so far, but I'm very excited to see. Hopefully they can be both. If both can be top 10, I think it'd be considered a success for their weekend.
Oh, for sure. That'd be a big success for the team if they can both clinch a solid top 10 finish.
Yeah.
Also last year, Carlos Sainz finished 6th.
Okay.
Ahead of Sebastian Vettel, 5th. I think the Ferraris could have a good shout if Carlos is as good at this track and it's his home Grand Prix. So driving with a bit of extra pride there, little chip on his shoulder. Ferraris could do well, considering Seb beat Charles there last year. Charles didn't finish.
Yeah. So no, I agree. I think it can be an interesting race. It's a race that has a couple of straights where you know, that's usually the passing zones with DRS. So I think it's gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be fun to see. The race itself starts at 9. I imagine that's 9. Is that 9 Spain time or is that Eastern?
I'm pretty sure that's Eastern.
Sure. I'm not sure.
Like 95% sure it's Eastern.
Oh yeah, it's my time. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because they race in the afternoon. No, that makes sense. Okay, so 9 Eastern, and then qualifying is going to be on Saturday at 9, and then free practice on Friday. All right. Do you want to call a position in your top 10?
You know what? I'm gonna say I'm with you. I say both Aston Martins finish in the top 10 this weekend.
Okay,
that's my hot take.
I'm saying my hot take, Norris is gonna. Oh no, I talked about Norris last time. I think. Yeah, I don't actually really know which one I want to say. Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll say AlphaTauri again in the top 10 too. Gasly, probably. Yeah, I'll go high. I'll say Gasly 7th. There you go.
All right.
So hopefully it works out. It'd be good for my fantasy. I'm now the leader in the whole league, so kind of hypes me up.
I'm drip dropping down this table, guys. It's not looking good for me.
And Norris Turbo Driver was the best call I've ever made.
Norris should just always be a turbo driver.
That's yeah, I agree. That's what I'm keeping.
Leave him as your turbo.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for everybody listening this weekend. Well, today. Hopefully you guys are able to watch next weekend, and then we'll see you next week. Anything else to add, Wills?
Like, comment, subscribe.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Goodbye.